Hey everyone, this is Taylor Harding and this is my range of motion video for the Module 12 Practicum. To start off with, first metatarsal phalangeal joint extension, we'll put the axis right over the medial aspect of the MTP joint and the stabilizing arm going down her foot. Now if she wants to extend her foot, so bring her big toe towards her, we'll measure that. It's right at about 45 degrees. Punch that in. Normal range of motion at the first MTP joint is 70 degrees. Okay, and then if you want to switch legs, look at her left foot. So same thing, axis along the first MTP joint, moving arm down along the medial aspect of her foot. Okay, bring your toe up towards you. Okay, and then we got about 35 degrees there. And again, normal range of motion in the first metatarsal joint is 70 degrees. Okay, switch legs again. For ankle dorsiflexion, you want to place the axis right below the medial malleolus. If you want to come back over here, actually.
Okay.
The axis is right below the medial malleolus. The stabilizing arm running along the side of her foot. And then bring your whole foot up towards you. Actually, that's not right. There we go. Okay, sorry. The stabilizing arm is along the fibula. The axis right below the medial malleolus. Okay, bring your foot up towards you. Perfect. That measures at about, what's the math there? Okay, relax for me. Measures right at about 35 degrees. Normal range of motion in ankle dorsiflexion is 20 degrees. Switching legs, so axis right below the medial malleolus, stabilizing arm running along the fibula, tibia, sorry. Then bring your foot up towards you. Okay, we got about 40 degrees of movement there. All right. For knee extension, go ahead and lay down for me. Go up into a 90-90 position. For knee extension, starting with the left leg. We'll put axis right along the lateral joint line, stabilizing arm going along the femur, moving arm along her fibula. Go ahead and extend your leg for me. Okay. That measures right at about 75 degrees. And then switching legs. Starting at 90, go ahead and extend for me. Go from 90 to 160, it brings it back to 70, which is 20 degrees away from the ideal range of motion of 180. Or excuse me, the ideal range of motion of 20. So we're right in range there. For hip abduction, I'll have you scoot towards the end of the table. Okay, and then we'll lay out for me. Alright, so we'll have for hip abduction, start with the axis along the same side, ASIS. The stabilizing arm moving along, pointed towards the opposite ASIS. The moving arm running along the femur. Have you bring this leg out as much as you can. Right at about 50, so that's That's 40 degrees of range of motion, with the ideal range of motion being 45. Okay, switching sides to the right. Same setup, axis over the ASIS, pointed towards the other ASIS. Go ahead and bring your leg out for me. And again, right at 40 degrees for range of motion on that side. All right, move back up into the 90-90 for me. Okay, for hip internal and external rotation, we'll have your subject back into the 90-90 position. The axis of the goniometer right above the patella, and the stabilizing arm kind of drawing an imaginary line that's parallel with the ground. Okay, and then for internal rotation, I'll have you externally rotate your tibia, measuring that from 90, goes out to about 50, so you'll have, from 0, about 50 degrees of range of motion there. And then just stay on this leg to do external rotation. I'll have you bring your leg in. Again, keeping the stabilizing arm in an imaginary line parallel to the ground. So measuring external rotation. From 0, you got about 30 degrees of range of motion there. Optimal for both hip internal and external rotation are 45 degrees. Okay. On the left leg, again, axis over the patella, stabilizing arm parallel to the ground. Have you move your leg out for me. That measures out to be about 40 degrees, internal rotation. And then external rotation, once I get set up. Okay, go ahead. Right at about 40 degrees as well for external rotation on her left hip. Okay, and then shoot back towards the end of the table for me. Moving into hip extension. I'll be lay down with, for working the right leg, I'll have you lay down and flex the left knee up to her chest. Place the axis right over the greater trochanter. Stabilizing arm going up her trunk, and the moving arm running alongside the lateral side of her femur. From 0, it's about -6 degrees range of motion. Optimal is -5. Okay, coming over to her left side. And again, axis over the greater trochanter. Stabilizing arm moving along her trunk. Moving arm along her femur. Got about +5 degrees range of motion on her left side. Right. Next we have shoulder flexion. So let me scoot towards the edge of the table. Lay down. Okay. For shoulder flexion, we'll have the axis right over her humeral head. Stabilizing arm. The stabilizing arm will be along her trunk, so I'll have her do the movement first as much as she can before you start seeing scapular movements right about there. Axis along the humeral head, stabilizing arm along the trunk. Measuring the movement arm. Get to about 110 degrees range of motion there. Optimal is 160. Okay, again, I'll have her do the range or movement as much as she can. Good. axis along the greater trope. Okay, got about 170 on her right arm. Okay, next for shoulder internal and external rotation, I'll have her come out to a 90-90 in her elbow and shoulder. Start with external rotation, so just have her rotate as much as you can without her scapula moving. Good, right about there. Axis right over the olecranon. Stabilizing arm pointing straight towards the ground. We'll measure that. Right at about 90 degrees on her right arm for external rotation. Okay, internal rotation now, same kind of thing, 90-90. Back off a little bit, there we go. Axis right over the olecranon. About 30 degrees for internal rotation, with optimal being 70 degrees. Okay, I'll do a switch. Now for her left arm, 90-90 position. Start with external rotation. Good. Got 90 degrees range of motion there for external rotation, which is perfect. And then internal rotation. Good. You have 40 degrees range of motion there. And again, optimal for internal rotation is 70 degrees. Okay, that is the range of motion test for Module 12. Thanks everyone.